All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. Today, we are going to be talking about the Spartans and the Athens. Some of you guys have watched the movie 300, and a lot of people tend to think, "Oh my God, that's so true. It looks so real." La, 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 la. It dramatized a lot of stuff, and we're going to go through it because, again, not everything you see in movies are true. But the movie did point out some things that were real. Okay, and we're going to talk about that today. All right, so here is your warm-up picture. The first question asks you, what's going on here. Okay, so be sure you read what says on top there. Um, the second one says, why do you think this lady says, it's a bit Spartan? Why do you think she said that? Okay, so take a couple minutes, write your responses, pause the video because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right, so the word Spartan itself literally means highly self-disciplined. Okay, and there is not a better word that fits this group. They were highly self-disciplined group. They focused primarily on military, and that's what drove them. Okay. Now, in the movie, you see them, with the kids, and they're like, this kid's good enough. We'll keep him. Oh, this one's not good enough. We'll toss him. Not necessarily true. Not necessarily. Okay. The thing is, the movie did get right is that the boys were trained in military tactics. That part is very true. From they were small, they were trained to fight and hand to hand with weapons, long distance weapons, uh, and things like that. Um, Now, the thing is, that wasn't like their whole life. They could live a life a little bit. Um, at times, boys could be married. Problem is, even when they were still 20, they still had to serve in the army. Now, thing is, some of these guys, like I said, were married, had a wife, maybe a kid or two, and they would have to basically live at the barracks, until they were the age of 30. Just in case something happened, a war busted out or some conflict, they could easily grab their weapons and head on out. Um, the other thing that made Spartans unique compared to a lot of other places at that time was that the women actually had more freedom. Now, the women's responsibility was to keep up the the Spartan values. Basically tell their husbands, hey, you are the one who are protecting this house. Your job is to protect this household, this country, things like that, um, and raise their sons to be tough. You know, and if they had girls, to teach them, hey, this is what you do. This is how we, uh, our job. Okay, so it wasn't just cleaning and having kids. No, it was keeping up the values. The other thing was, like in the movie, you see up on top here, they show the guy shirtless, things like that. They were not shirtless. They did have armor on, but the thing is, these guys were physically fit. I mean, we're talking fit. I guess you could say that's why maybe the director or whoever it was decided not to show them with armor to show, hey, these guys were physically fit. I can understand that then, but if it's just to show them off, and it's kind of pointless. But these Spartans were strong. The shield alone weighed like 60 pounds, and they didn't carry like on their back or on the side. No, they kept it up. And imagine marching with 60 pounds on your forearm, and you're going for miles on end. That takes a lot of strength, you know. The shield story that the movie portrayed, that is true. That is something the women would say to their husbands. Either come back with your shield or be carried on it. Meaning, either you go fight, you come back, victorious, or you're brought back dead. So no running away in fear, no abandoning your men, none of that stuff. No, you're going to war. You're going to either come back alive and victorious, or you're going to be dead, and you guys lost. It's the way it is. Now, unlike what the movie said, the movie basically said there was one king. In reality, there was two kings who led the army through campaigns. Um, there was another group of people who they didn't fight, but they had a bigger responsibility. These guys were called the ephors. They were elected each year. These guys were trained to, or sorry, not trained, but their responsibility was to teach the kids how to fight. Okay, they try to always teach them different ways, hand to hand, like I said, swords, um, long distance weapons, things like that. And basically, to be like the police, kind of watch over the whole place, make sure that everything was running hunky dory. Now, there was a council of people. They're known as councils of elders, which was again the two kings and 28 citizens over the age of 60. So if let's say something happened, this group says this group says that. They bring it to the council, and then the council would basically decide on who's right or wrong. The thing is, they wouldn't discuss it. They would just hear, like, oh, they stole this. No, we didn't. We didn't steal it. And then they'd be like, oh, what do you guys think? Or not even that. They wouldn't even say that. They'd be like, okay, I think they did it, or I think they didn't do it. That's it. They would not hear anyone out. Um, I know it kind of sounds weird. Like, why wouldn't you discuss this stuff? To them, it was like not important. Battle, victory in conquest, that was more important. The stuff around town and things like that wasn't that big of a deal. Spartan also, they kept to themselves. They didn't really talk or communicate or be buddies with too many people. Um, the citizens were not allowed to travel. This one's very interesting. They made sure that their citizens stayed within the Spartan territory. They could not venture out and explore. Also, the citizens were not allowed, or even the kids, were not allowed to study philosophy, literature, or art. None of that stuff. It was all focused on military. That's the thing that was their goal. That was their focus on military power. Um, and you're going to see the next group basically is like a 180. All right, so here's your first question. Why do you think the Spartans didn't allow their people to study philosophy, literature, or art? And let's say they did. Do you think their culture would have changed if they were allowed to do that? Or do you think they still would have been, hey, I learned about philosophy, but I am still about military power and things like that? Or do you think it would have changed them? What do you think? All right. So go ahead, write down your response. Pause the video because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, so now we've come to Athens. Again, they are on the other spectrum of the Spartans. At first, Athens was run by a king. Okay, they did have a king at first. Then they changed it to a group of aristocrats. Okay, these are the people who owned the best land, they had political power, things like that. It was a small group, but it went from one person to a handful of people, so it was a little bit of an improvement. The thing is, in the 7th century, the Athens they started having really bad economic problems, you know, and it got so bad that farmers were sold into slavery when they couldn't pay the debts. Even one time they could not pay the debt, or they missed it one payment. Um, they were put into slavery to make up for that money that they did not pay. Um, and of course, this upset a lot of the common people. Like really, you're living on really wealthy, really well, and you're this small payment that you barely even noticed. It's going to cause someone to be a slave. Come on now. So this guy right here, the one you see in the statue, this guy's name is Solon. Now, Solon was a reformer, okay, and he was given full power to do some changes because he's like, I can make things better for us. So what he did was basically he cleared out all the debt. So all the money that these common people had for the aristocrats wiped clean. No more debt. All right. Problem was that's like putting a band-aid on a broken leg. Yeah, it's gonna help a little, very little, but doesn't answer the whole issue, the whole problem. And in this case, it's the poor people don't have land. The poor people don't have land to farm on, so they can get money on their own, grow their own crops, and then sell it, you know, and make money on their own. You know, that makes the economy grow when people have something that they can do to get money and then not only pay their debts but have extra money to buy things. Okay, so again, his his what he did, it didn't solve the problem, but it helped tiny bit, but still something is better than nothing. So then comes this guy, and I know I'm gonna kill his name, even though I have it, spelled out phonetically right there. Kythenes, Kythenes. Again, you'd probably say it better than me. He came into power, and just like Solon, he was a reformer. Now, what he did was something a little bit different. So instead of that handful of people, like 10 people, controlling everything, he said, you know what? Let's have a council of 500 people, right? And they're going to supervise everything from foreign affairs, how much money we got, and basically make up laws that's going to be voted on an assembly, right? Those 500 people are going to vote to say whether that should be a law or not a law. Is it going to violate anyone's rights and things like that? Thing was, only males could vote. And the only way that they were allowed to vote is if the issue at hand was talked about first, openly, for everyone to join in. This was unique because now people could hear what the problem is, what the issues are, and hear for themselves, like, okay, yeah, you know what? Maybe if they do this, maybe they can, you know, come up with this better plan, or they can make this better, you know. So it wasn't just a handful of people hearing the problems and coming up with a decision. It was everyone who could hear the problem, and then this smaller group, the 500 people, they were going to make the decision. They were going to vote, but everyone got to hear the problem, and maybe somebody can advise that one of those 500 people saying, "Hey, I think this might work. You should try this." This is the foundation of democracy. When we are informed and know what's going on, and then we vote on things. Okay. All right. So here is your next part. What do you notice about the Spartans and the Athens? What do they have in common or not have in common when it comes to voting? Okay, so you may want to go back on the Spartans and see how they voted, and look at the Athens, see how they voted. You may want to read through some of that stuff too, reread it, the little notes that I have. Um, so what do they have either in common or they don't have in common with one another when it comes to voting? Okay, so pause the video, okay, because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, so this is another guy whose name I kill. Um, it's Pericillus, I guess. I don't know. I'm really bad at these ancient Greek names. But the thing is, this dude right here, the one you see here in the statue, he was a really dominant figure in the Athenian politics. Not only did he help expand the territory, he did some things that was unheard of at that time. Okay. Now the thing is, people became very involved with democracy, right? They're listening, they're hearing the stuff, what's going on, they want to know what's happening in their country and what can be done. What he did is he installed direct democracy. Direct democracy means that people vote directly. You don't have somebody voting for you. You do it yourself. So now people are hearing the issues, hearing the problems of what's happening in this country or in their country, and they basically say, okay, you know what? Um, I don't agree with that. I'm going to vote against it. I don't think we should do that. I'm going to vote against that. Oh yeah, no, that's good. That's good. We should vote. I'm going to vote for that. Direct democracy really works when you have a small group. It doesn't work when you have millions upon millions of people. But if you have several thousand, several hundred thousand, it could work. You know. Now, what made it even better, what he did to make things better, is he made it possible for poor citizens to take part in public affairs. He lowered the class males eligible to be in public office. This was unique. This was never heard of because a lot of these politicians, they were people who were families who were up here. They had money or they had land, they had status, they were seen as like quote unquote royalty. And here he is saying, you, the average Joe, the average person, you can be in politics. Because remember, these guys, these senators and all these rich people and all them at this time, they don't know what life is like for the average person because they never lived that average life. And here he is saying, you guys know what's up. You guys are in the gutter. You know what's going on. You know what if these policies help or hurt us. So why don't you be in the politics? Why don't you join and tell us what's going on, what's working, what's not working? How is life like for the bottom person? Mind blowing, especially back then. Mind blowing, that a bottom person could be in politics and then have a vote, have a voice that's going to matter. Very unique. And not only that, they were going to get paid very well. So they were now going to go from the gutter and come out. And let's say they get to that point where they're like, oh, well, I'm not Mr. Chingon. And, oh, those little lower people. Well, then someone at the lower bottom could take over their spot and then they could climb up too, and their family could climb up out of poverty. So again, it was revolutionary thinking. It's out of the box thinking, really, especially at that time. And that's why a lot of people loved him. All right, so for your exit ticket, tell me something that you learned today. Hopefully, you learned something new. I really do hope you did learn something. Um, so once you finish that, that's the end of this class. Hopefully, you had fun. I really do, and hopefully, you enjoyed it. Okay, I will see you guys in class next time. Okay, you guys, you take care. You be safe. All right.